Hey guys, Matthew here and welcome back to another episode. In this 5 video part series, we're going to be setting up Windows deployment services and MDT to deploy images over the network. So let's get started. First and foremost, I'm actually trying to hopefully make sure that this works. Where's my mouse cursor gone? There we are. Okay, so what will be covered in today's episode? So we're going to be setting up Server 2012 R2. Did I do that right? Here we go. So what will be covered? So we're going to be setting up Server 2012 R2, adding roles to the server, which will be Windows deployment services and Windows 10 ADK. We're going to be adding the network configuration as well, which will be setting up your static IP addresses, DHCP, and your static IP addresses and things like your subnet mask and things like that. We're going to be adding operating system install media like Windows 7, Windows 8, whatever you want. And we're going to be creating our first task sequence and then finally customizing settings. So again, setting up Server 2012 R2, we're going to be adding roles to the server with like Windows deployment services and Windows 10 ADK. So the server operating system that I've chosen for today is Server 2012 R2. One, because my server upstairs actually handles it better, and two, I'm actually very familiar with it. I'm starting to get into 2016, but still want to familiarize myself before we start going full into the infrastructure. The next thing as well is we're going to be setting up Windows deployment services, and this is what we use for Pixie booting. That's the only thing I use it for. And the reason for that is because, well, MDT doesn't have an inbuilt Pixie boot option, or at least I don't think it does. The next thing as well that we'll need to be installing is the Windows 10 ADK, which is the application development kit or something like that. I can't exactly remember. But that's what will be allowing for extra features with MDT and things like that. And then finally, of course, installing Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. So there are links in the video description as well to all of these things here. So installing the Windows 10 ADK and Deployment Toolkit. Links will all be provided in the description for this video. The network configuration is very basic again. We're just having a static IP address of 129. Subnet mask, which is our 255.255.255 range, which we're all familiar with. Gateway will be my router. DNS will be my domain server and router as well, /gateway. So the last thing that we're going to be doing is adding operating system install media. That will be your media from your ISOs, your DVDs, etc., like Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows XP, Vista. I don't care. You can all add them into MDT. And then, of course, we'll be importing them from the MDT interface. So that's what we're going to be doing. So this is today's job, and we'll go ahead and transition over. So here we are on my VMware ESXi console, which we'll be going ahead and doing. I'm just trying to make sure I set this up correctly the way I set it. No, it doesn't matter. Actually, I'll put myself up here. We'll do that quickly. So here we are, guys. This is actually my main server, which is my IBM X3650 Model 3. And what we're going to be going ahead and doing today is we're going to be setting up, as I said, setting up the environment. So we're going to be putting a fresh install of Server 2012 R2. And yes, I have a lot of virtual machines. I will admit that. I have a lot of them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up a brand new virtual machine. And some specs and things that we can use to run that server with is I'm going to be using 4 cores, 8 gigs of RAM and a 120 gigabyte hard drive because this is in a development environment, but in a real scenario you'll be using like terabytes and terabytes for all your images and things like that. So we're going to call this MDT server in my virtual environment, MDT server, and the reason I've already got one, so I'm just going to put this here for video series, if I spelled that right. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and choose Windows as our operating system, and then going ahead and selecting Microsoft Windows 2012. Let's see if there's an R2 there. No, there isn't. Okay, I'm going to hit next. We're going to go to our VM data. So I keep all of my stuff on my NAS, which is great. That way it's all backed up and things like that to the cloud. So I'm going to, as I said, give it 4 cores, and I'm going to give it 8 gigabytes of RAM, which I'm going to transfer over to gigs. There we go. We can get rid of that now. And then, of course, I'm going to give this 120 gigabytes of storage. We're going to also specify, we're not actually going to boot off a DVD. We're going to actually deploy it off my MDT server, my current one. And that way, because it's got my custom images and things like that installed on it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And the next thing that we're going to do is deploy the appliance, which is this little icon down here. And this allows me to remotely manage it from the console. So I'm going to find MDT server for video series. And I'm going to power this on. And then I'm going to go ahead, console, and I'm going to launch the remote console. This will probably take quite some time. Actually, it won't take too long, but it will take some time to get it installed and set up. But the best thing about it is it will do it all for me. All my software's there. Okay, that I didn't have enough time to actually do that, so I'm just going to reset that. I'm going to F12 at once. It asks to boot off Pixie. As you can see, this is exactly what we're going to be doing within MDT. So I'm just sort of giving a demonstration of how it works. This is actually deploying it within the network. And this is exactly what we're going to be doing. However, I'm sort of demonstrating already how we deploy images and things like that. But this is exactly what we're going to be doing. We'll be using the light touch file, which allows for booting over the network. Really, really cool stuff. But anyway, I'm going to pause the video right here, and I'm going to let this install. And plus, I don't want to spoil anything either. Let this install, and then we'll be right back once I've got a fresh copy of Server 2012 R2 set up. Okay, so I've actually turned up the camera just for this bit because, well, it's actually getting quite dark where I am now. So when I filmed this, it was quite light, but now it's actually now 7 o'clock, so it's been a while. Anyway, the system is now successfully deployed. I'm going to put this into full screen mode. And now, as you can see here, we're going to hit finish. Okay, we have one successful deployed operating system. So first things first, I haven't added this to Active Directory or anything like that. So first things first, I did sort of mix this around, but the way it's going to work is we're going to do the network configuration, then set up Server 2012 R2. No, sorry, I've said that completely wrong. We're going to do it network configuration, applying Active Directory, then adding the roles. So we're going to go in here. As you can see, we've got our MDT server 1. It's part of the work group. Firewall's off, and I've set that up for a reason. Because the reason for that is because we're within a environment that has a bigger firewall. I've actually got a pfSense running and a NetScaler as well in my environment, so that protects me pretty well from viruses and things. So that's our firewall that we use. The next thing as well that we're going to be going ahead and doing is I'm just actually going to transition over just to make this a little easier to see. There we go. Just to make, so now we can see everything, and I'm going to now go ahead, just turn that off there, beautiful. So now we're going to go ahead and hit workgroup, and we're going to go ahead and add this to Active Directory. So this is MDT server 1. I'm going to now put in home.local, which is my domain, and I'm going to put in my domain credentials. And that will allow us in, and now it will be a part of the Active Directory. There's one thing I am going to go ahead and do, and that is connect it to put it in a particular OU in Active Directory. So I'm just going to, let me fire up remote desktop, and I'm going to log on to our domain controller, which you guys have probably seen in tons of videos now. I never stop using it. So we'll go, oh yeah, this is Azure that I was working on earlier. We'll go up to Active Directory, and we're going to go ahead and go to computers. There's MDT server 1. I'm going to cut that and put it over here. Yeah, I have quite a few servers in my environment, as you can see. So there it is. Okay, so that's now done. We're going to go ahead and hit the desktop now. Well, not literally hit the desktop. So we have that now applied. That's the one thing we're going to do. I'm just going to go through a few more settings, which is allow remote connections. Done. I'm just going to hit restart later for a second. I'm going to turn the firewall off for the domain. And that way, it just makes it easy, because what I've discovered is the firewall does interfere with the operating system and being able to access files and things like that. So it's just a common good thing that's in place. As well as that, we'll go through just a few more things. As you can see, everything's actually been set up by default, which is brilliant, because that makes me really happy now, because that way I can, this is why I had it from an image, because usually what would happen is this would come up as Canberra and things like that. I'm not in Adelaide. I'm in Adelaide, so that's why. Next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and set up our static IP address, and I think I might actually change it from to 152, purely because I've set up a scope for that, and that's why. So I'm going to do 152, 255, 255, 255.0, put the gateway in, as we discussed in our configuration. I'm going to go ahead, oh wait, why is that 67? Whoops. That's a great start. 19.67.1. And there we go. We're going to hit validate settings upon exit. That way, just in case something does go wrong, we can find out. Fortunately enough, we'll just see if it detects any problems. Fortunately enough, I don't think that's going to be the case. Nope. Okay, all good. So now that we have that all set up, that's all good to go. We'll just do a few more checks, make sure everything's there, domain, and we'll just refresh it. So that's now part of home.local. Turned off the firewall for the domain. Everything else is enabled, so I'm happy. Alright, now I'm happy to go ahead and reboot. Okay, so in that way that we know the group policy is applied, the way it's going to work and what we're going to do is, hopefully what should happen is group policy should have applied a background, and that's my way of knowing that group policy is applied, that I see that background or the lock screen, and that way it means that everything's actually the way it should be. But other than that, it's just a waiting game. I don't know why it's taking so slow. I mean, I've got other VMs running, so that could be an issue, but we have two Cat6a lines that run up to the attic, and the server's both connected into that, so it shouldn't be an issue with that. So yeah, I'm just wondering why. Just says please wait, so that's probably group policy in place, trying to apply. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I really don't want it to. Applying security policy to the system, so clearly that is Active Directory again, waiting for local session manager, and there we go. So that should load hopefully. I don't know. There we go. And of course now we can log on as the domain administrator. So we're not going to log on as that anymore, we're going to log on as home/add. If this would like to work, that'd be great. What the? As administrator. And there you go. So please wait for the user profile surface, blah, 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 blah. Now hopefully that should come up. Now the reason I'm using the domain admin is, well, one, it's because I'm applying everything through Active Directory. And as well as that, I haven't got any policies set up for the administrator. Because with the other accounts, like my other admin accounts, there's policies in place like folder redirection, things like that. And so that would just take a long time. So I like using this account that doesn't have anything applied to it. Just makes things easier, especially when I'm running out of time. Okay, so as you guys can see here, it's all logged on. So we've got Google Chrome and everything. So this is my master image again. So it's got a few extra whizzes and things like that installed. However, that's not an issue. So the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is set up server 2012 R2, which is adding the roles to the server, which is Windows Deployment Services, Windows 10 80K, and then installing MDT. So yeah, we'll just launch up Server Manager. This is the fun bit. This is where we get into the interesting bit. And it doesn't take that long to set up MDT, as I've discovered. And I'm really grateful that it doesn't take that long, because it takes forever. Well, it used to for me anyway. But I reckon it's because I've got a slow internet connection. That's the whole real reason. Okay, so we'll just let that finish loading, which is up here. Come on. Okay, it's done. Nope, still going. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and click Manage, and then we're going to add roles and features. You've probably seen this a million times with server operating systems. Just got to go up there, add roles and features. Okay, here we go. So next, we're going to do a role-based or feature-based installation. We're going to put it on. And my headphones just crashed again, which drives me mad. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Which I think have they started dying again? Well, it seems to be working on the thing. Anyway, we're going to then set up our Windows Deployment Services, which is an inbuilt Microsoft tool. We're just going to click Add Features, going to click Next, Next, WDS, this is just some information here. Finally, we're going to select the role surfaces, and everything is set up correctly. Just going to actually make sure my headphones are working. There we go, they all work. So we're going to need a deployment server and a transport server. And these two are what help remotely install the Windows operating systems and provide, it helps with the standalone server and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and now hit install, or click install, sorry, I'm going to have to keep using my terms correctly. And all we're going to do now is just wait for it. As you can see here, it says MDT server 1 home.local, so it's all working the way I wanted it to. Really happy with all of that. But yeah, it's just essentially a waiting game now, which, well, hopefully it shouldn't take too long, because I've given this thing a pretty amount of resources. we'll have a look though. Performance-wise, I've given this 8 cores. I think I did. Let's have a look. No, I gave it 4. I tell a lie. I gave it 8 gigs of memory. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be. It handles that just fine at the moment. Cool. So we'll just go ahead and wait for that to install, and then I'll be right back. So as I expected, that did take a little bit of time, but not too much, so it's all up and running. So now if I go to the Start menu, you'll notice now that I have a new little icon, Windows Deployment Services. So that's all good to go and set up. We'll go Servers, and as you can see, it's not configured, so we're going to go ahead and configure that right now. So we're going to click Configure Server, or right-click, sorry. As you guys remember, if it's a part of AD, it's all kinds of cool things like that. You don't have to use Active Directory or things like that for this. So, Windows Deployment Services, I won't go into too much detail, however, you can simply go ahead and run this without having to have it within Active Directory, which supports standalone mode. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you've got DHCP running on your router, or you'll need to have something equivalent running like within Active Directory, which hopefully most of you guys are familiar with. So the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is configure it, and I'm going to actually make it a standalone server, even though it's a part of Active Directory. And I've had issues in the past with this, and plus this is only for Pixie booting, remember, which is PXE. So there's no real need for that. We're going to leave the default remote installation folder where it is. This is where we'll be storing our boot images. And we'll just hit yes to it, and I don't care. That's just saying, look, you can do it to anything. We're going to hit to respond to any client computers known and unknown. That way it just deploys to everything that we need to do. We do not require administrator approval for unknown computers. We're going to copy all the files across, which it should do pretty quick. Fingers crossed this doesn't take too long either. Here we go, starting Windows Deployment Services. Look how quick that is. And while we're at it, I'm actually going to go ahead and shut down. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to shut down the other server, because otherwise they'll go ahead and interfere with each other, which I don't want happening. So we'll go into my ESXi console, we'll go to my virtual machines, and I'll see if I can find it. Here we go, I'm just going to suspend that. Okay, that's doing that. And go back to MDT server. And we're not going to go ahead and add images to the server now. That part is done. So Windows Deployment Services is now configured. This is where we'll be storing our boot images, which is a boot.wim file. Windows Deployment Services and MDT do not support ESD files. So that's a version from Microsoft, the official version. You have to go through third-party sources, as I've discovered in the past. Now that's all sorted. Now we need to go ahead and get the MDT Toolkit and the ADK. Now I remember correctly that there's only a few things of the ADK you need to install, not everything with it, fortunately enough. So it's about 3.8 gigs, I reckon. So depending on how well your internet speed is, it shouldn't take too long. But for my case, it's going to take forever because I've got super slow internet, but that's fine. Chrome, if you'd like to launch today, that'd be great, thanks. Whew. Come on, haven't got all day. Let's launch it. Come on, I haven't got all day, you stupid thing. I gave this at 4 cores and 8 gigs of RAM. That should be more than enough. Okay, here we go. Chrome's finally launching for the first time ever, because I have deployed this for the first day, so I don't blame it. I'll fire up Chrome. If I would like to launch. This is taking its time. Now, I don't tend to use the Internet Explorer within Server 2012 R2, and the reason for that is because, well, it's a little bit funny. It always wants you to add it to a trusted site and things like that, so it just takes forever. So I'd rather use Chrome. Plus, it's a nice web browser. So I'm going to just type in the Windows 10 ADK, and I recommend you download the latest version. And that way, I think it's 1806 currently. There we go. We'll go ahead and download it. And we'll just go ahead and continue. And of course, these links will be provided in the description as well as all my notes and things like that I've done today. So we're going to go ahead and download the ADK for Windows 10 version 1809. I was close. And then we're going to go ahead and download the latest version of MDT as well. This shouldn't take too long for the download side of things, as you can see here. But when it comes to downloading the other stuff, it will take some time, depending on your internet connection. While I'm at it as well, I might as well go and download MDT, which is Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, which you can go ahead and download from Microsoft's website. As long as you've got something that can Pixie boot as well, you potentially could run this within Windows 10. but I highly suggest that you avoid that if you can, and go with a server operating system. Now we're going to hit keep. I don't know why it thinks that. And here's the MDT toolkit as well, so we'll go ahead and download that as well. I'm going to save all of this in the C drive at some point when I get a chance. Okay, so my microphone just died again, so that's driven me mad. But what I've gone ahead and done here is I've downloaded the MDT toolkit, downloaded Windows 10 80K version 1806, gone ahead and downloaded that and stick them in the C drive, etc. So I've had to use my headset as well because it's just my microphone's actually zip tied at the moment up in the green screen, which will be coming out soon. So as you guys can see here, this is the MDT console, which is great. Just make sure. It finally is here. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is install the Windows 10 Deployment Toolkit, and of course we're going to need the certain requisites. I can't pronounce it right. Anyway, not responding. That's just a great start. But it took its time to load, and I have a suspicion why now. Because of suspending that other virtual machine, it's putting a bit of pressure on the disk. So I reckon this is what's causing that issue. And the reason I'm actually running it off my NAS at the moment is because the SAS drives have actually decided to give up on the server, which is just fantastic. So that's just great. Yeah, I guess we'll just wait now until it decides to respond. It is taking its time. Hang on, let's see if it decides to launch. If it's, I think it's crashed. Here we go. Finally. So hit no to sending anonymous data to Microsoft. Which let's go back. Didn't know if that accepted it. No, I'm not going to send that. Click next. Accept. Here we go. I'll just grab these things here. I'm just going to quickly pull up my little sheet here with my PDF document and all my notes. And here we go. So all we're going to need are three things. We're going to need the deployment tools, user state, and let me get this right. So the deployment tools, the Windows pre-installation environment, which I'm trying to find. Nope, Windows PE, which I don't see it on here. Oh, this is interesting. I've never not seen that. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead. No, here we go. This is the Windows 10. I think that's the deployment tools and the user state. We'll just leave it all as default. It looks like it's only going to download. Oh, it's actually kept it down, so it's going to only download 914 megabytes. So that's going to be pretty good. Hit install, and if we're missing something, you shouldn't complain at me. While we're at that as well, we'll go ahead and install MDT as well, which is down here. So we'll just grab that now. Just going to move my cursor. There we go. So now I can see what I'm doing. We're going to hit next, and we're going to go through. This is the latest version, which is the 840, which is 8450. We're going to go ahead and install everything as default. Click next. Don't join the program at this time. You can if you want to. And then we'll just hit install. Yep. And then we'll close the browser, and then we'll just wait for all of this stuff to install. This shouldn't take too long because it's a lot less than I thought it was. So we'll go ahead and wait for this to install, and I'll be right back once it has finished installing. Oh, that was quick. Good job. Welcome back, guys. So it's actually the next day. I actually finished this up last night. However, I couldn't do the audio recording due to the fact that everyone was asleep. So what we're going to be going ahead and doing is I'll just show you the basic demonstration and the process of what I went through and why the heck is my cursor. There we go. Okay, so what I did is this is after installing the Windows 10 80K. I went ahead and it presented me here with a screen that said, welcome to the Windows 10 80K setup, blah, 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 for Windows 10. So then I went ahead and launched the deployment workbench. Then from there, I had to give administrative privileges, which I've done. And then, of course, we're in the deployment workbench. I then went ahead and created a new deployment share by going up here and right-clicking, create new deployment share. And then finally, we went through the wizard of setting it up. So we set up our deployment share, a C deployment share. We just gave it a share name. Now, the little $ here represents that it's a hidden folder, and that way it can't be seen or viewed on your local network. The next thing that we set up as well is a description for it. I just left it as default. These are the settings here that I set up for my environment. However, you'll be asked if you want to do a computer backup or a product key, or if BitLocker should be enabled. Sorry, there. Okay. The next thing that we went ahead and did is, we just did the summary, as you can see, all of these things here. And then finally, the process was completed. Okay, so I'm going to now switch over to my other desktop, and I'm going to pull up the ESXi console. Just give me 1 second there. Alright guys, so here we are back on the server. It took some time for it to launch back up, but because I had about hundreds of VMs running at the same time. Okay, so let's go back into the deployment workbench. We're going to give administrative privileges. And here we go for the first time launching into the deployment workbench. So this bit that will need to be set up, as you can see, it's just going to do it snap into the console, blah 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 blah, and the rest of that. So once this is loaded, which will be nice, everything's just so slow, isn't it? Here we go, and I'm going to just escape that. Okay, so here we go. So this is the deployment workbench. And as you can see, we set up our deployment share, and here you guys go. We now officially have all of our, I wouldn't say we will have all of our folders here for all of the, all the options in the deployment kit. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is, I'll just get my list here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to import media. So we've obviously gone ahead and we have set up the server. So we've installed all of the roles. We've done the network configuration, which is now done. We've applied Active Directory, that's done too. We've now got 3 things to do left in the first episode. So now we're going to go ahead and add operating system install media. So I keep mine on a server, which all the Active Directory systems have permission to access, which is super easy and makes my life a breeze. Okay, and I'm going to go to VM folder, and then we're going to find the latest version. I'm going to go ahead and put Windows 10 Enterprise on. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick I've learned. Sometimes you might have accidentally gone ahead and downloaded the 32-bit version, which I've done here for Server 2000, which I don't even know why I have in the 2018 ISO folder. So I'm going to go ahead and mount that. I'm going to open up Windows Explorer in a new window. It's seeming to mount it by the looks of it. Once that's doing what it needs to do, that'd be great. Must admit, everything's been so slow today. Okay, so we've got it mounted as the E drive, so that's brilliant. So now we're going to go ahead and go to operating systems. I'm going to go and import an operating system. The next thing we'll need to do is a full set of source files. So this will be off a Windows DVD, CD or equivalent, as I specified earlier. We're going to hit browse, and we're going to go to this PC, and then we're going to go to our drive. So now it should hopefully, if I've imported that right, it should come up as Windows 10 Enterprise Evaluation. This is the directory name, and that's what it's going to put it under as. We just hit next, and we're going to let that import. It will take some time, so I'll be back once this process is completed. Okay, so the operating system has now successfully imported. So as you guys can see here, now we've got Windows 10 Enterprise, and I'm going to go ahead and just rename this because this drives me mad. So we've got Windows 10 Enterprise Evaluation. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a folder, so I'm just going to call this that means Enterprise. I'll just shorten it. So we'll just stick it in here. And there we go. So that's now how we install, import an operating system. Really, really easy. Now, if my laptop didn't go flat, so I had all my notes on, that'd be great. Let me just log on here. Okay, so that's now done. We've created our first task sequence, which is brilliant. The next thing that we're going to go ahead and do, no, sorry, I tell a big fat lie. We're going to we've done an operating system. Now we're going to create our first task sequence. So in this folder here called task sequences, yeah, I know, right? It's so obvious. We're going to create a task. So we're going to go and call this 001. You can call it anything you like. You could call it, you know, Win 10 upgrade, something like that. I'm going to call this Windows 10 Enterprise. Now I put deploy in front, so I know. what it is. And we're going to do a standard client task sequence. Later on in the episode, we'll be talking about all these templates and what it does. One that I really want to look into is a standard client upgrade task. You can do light touch, a standard task sequence. You can deploy virtual hard drives and all kinds of things like that. So we'll click next. We'll go into our operating systems with Windows 10 Enterprise, and we'll go to Windows 10 10 Enterprise Evaluation, 64-bit. We're not going to specify a product key currently. As you can see, it's already put my organization in there. Brilliant. And I don't know why it's done that. I can't remember exactly why, but I'll figure that out. We're going to be using an administrator password, so we'll put one in. And as you can see here, we've got the summary. We'll fire up the progress, which is done, and then hit finish. As you can see now, deploy Windows 10 Enterprise is our first task. So we've done that. Now we're going to go and customize our settings. So we're going to go up to the deployment share. Sorry, I tell a big, deployment share, hit properties, click properties. And as you can see here, we've got all of our supporting and things like that. However, we're going to go ahead and do confirm that, oh, great. That's just, MDT has a few issues occasionally here and there. I've had them sometimes as well, but we'll just go ahead and relaunch the deployment wizard then in that case, if it does that. Here we go, back to our deployment share, properties, and here we go. So this is where we've got all of our settings in here. We're going to go to our rules. This is where we set it up, where we can set up, your custom properties and all kinds of things like that. We've got the Windows PE. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Oh, I have a suspicion why. But anyway, you've got your light touch installations and then your background there. So that's that. And if this would like to work, that'd be great. However, in this case, it just doesn't want to. I think I didn't install PE, if I remember correctly. So we can go ahead and I'll go and get a different version to allow me to install that. And I think I've actually got a local copy as well. Let me just try and close all these windows. Here we go. Deployment shares. We're going to go to our deployment share. We're going to go properties. We're going to go to, as you can see, the MDT deployment share, all the information there. We have a x86 version and a x64-bit. And then we also have our Windows PE again, which keeps crashing on me. But anyway, guys, that is how you set up Server 2012 R2 with MDT. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you could like, subscribe, and share a comment in the comment section below, that'd be kindly appreciated. Thank you very much everyone for watching again, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye for now.